Hi, welcome back to Lindsay Acres Farms. I'm Buddy Lindsay, and today we're going to work on this jointer. Unfortunately, I don't think I've ever gotten this thing tuned right. I bought it used from Habitat for Humanity when they upgraded to some nice Powermatic tools, and I've attempted to get it, but it's a Dovetail style jointer, and to me that's a little bit harder to tune. And so we're going to give it a shot though, because I don't think I've ever gotten this done right. I need to use it for my next project, and so let's see about getting this thing tuned as perfect as we can. So let's do an intro into the setup of a jointer. It's pretty simple in actuality. This side's flat and this side's flat. They need to both be flat together. They need to be on what's called the same plane. They need to be coplanar. You need a bore, you need this one here to be flat all the way across here, and all the way across like this, but it also needs to be flat like this too. Well, this one needs to be the same this way and the same this way as this. So it's kind of hard. It can be kind of difficult to measure. One of the ways to do it is with basically a really long flat stick, in a sense, a metal flat surface. And I have one of those, and we're going to use that a little bit. Another is to use dial indicators as well. If you can get 3 points to line up all over the place, if you can get 3 points here, here, and here to match with this, then we're coplanar. So that's what we're going to attempt to do, and we're going to end up using a dial, like I said, a dial indicator to do that, because I feel like that's a little more precise and less fickle. However, we're probably also going to use my straight edge to get these longer pieces, because I've attempted to do a dial indicator for distance and I'm just not sure if I like it. The other thing to consider is this right here. These are where the blades are, and obviously, and this needs to be, I'll explain it more, but it needs to be slightly above this and basically the same as this. The blades do. And this also has to be coplanar with the bed, with this bed specifically, but it'll eventually be both beds. Kind of a pain to deal with, but we'll get into that. And then this right here, this one needs to be at a 45. How I realized this thing wasn't fully coplanar is whenever I put a combination square, my Starrett combination square, up against this wasn't square, but this was square, and I was like, oh, something's totally wrong. One of the other issues I've hit is whenever I plane this and I go across this direction, eventually one side starts to basically taper, even though it shouldn't. It should not taper as much as it does, maybe a little bit, but anyway, and I'm having a hard time with that. I am usually reasonably good with spatial awareness and extrapolating when you do something, what in 3D is happening to cause that issue, but man, this jointer for me has been a huge pain in the rear trying to figure that out. So with that in mind, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to start taking stuff apart. We're going to pull off this back section. And interestingly enough, you might see the plastic knob there. That is something that I 3D printed, because when I bought the thing, that handle wasn't working right, and it just shredded in my hands whenever I tried to twist it. We'll pull this off, then we will pull the guard off for the blade. And I'll explain how to get that back on so it has some spring in its step later. And now we should be down pretty brass tacks of what we need to do. About took out my face. So this part right here is going to wrap into a screw and hold it in tight, and then you have to twist this, and I think you have to, that's probably true. If you have this thing off and back, you just twist this to get a twist in here so that it'll automatically close. I didn't take the back thing off last time, so I had to twist this by hand, and I didn't do a very good job. Okay, so we have the base off. I want to go ahead and get a measurement of the cutter head. Hopefully it's in great shape and in plane with the in-feed table. But what we're going to use is we're going to use a dial indicator. One of the great things about a dial indicator is it lets you figure out very minute changes in things. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure this side and then scoot it over and measure this side. And we're going to watch the dial to see how much that needle moves, if it moves at all. So one of the interesting things about using the dial indicator here is that we have this hump right here on the cutter head, and so we need to take that into account. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the dial head to the line. So now what we're going to do is, now that we have that roughly basically a 0, I'm going to move it, slide this whole thing across the table and across the cutter head, and we're going to see how much that has moved. So we'll move it all the way down as best we can, and then we're going to slide this back and forth. The closest it gets to that cutter head at the peak is about 1/1000th of an inch. Now, depending on who you talk to, like, that should be good enough. If we wanted to adjust it, let's go ahead and take this off. Well, I thought I had this cleaned up fairly well at one point. I guess not. No wonder everything was getting thrown back out when I was using it last time. I feel like these roll pins should be pushed in so they'll go inside of there. I wonder why they're not. That's interesting. So this isn't a variable drive, so it's just a single pulley. I think the belt looks pretty good. Ah, I bet this is it. I bet there's a nut here that loosens this. Cool. Okay, so with our 2 marks there, that kind of, I was playing with it, and this mark here and this mark here, it doesn't exactly work out quite as well as I would like. However, it does give an area to mess with. So what I'm going to do is, because I get weirdness on the back of this area where the upright goes for the 90 degree, I'm actually going to move this end to right before there. So we're going to run this dial indicator on that dot that we put, but we're going to run the front. I can actually run it out closer to the end right here, and we can get a better indication more of the distance of the thing. So one of the things you have to do is you have to watch this, do it several times, watch it peak out, a lot like a waveform if you were to look at like a heartbeat, and you just kind of get an idea of what it looks like. Then what we're going to do is we're going to try to get it at that peak, and I'm going to try to slide it all the way across. I'm going to try to slide it across where those 2 dots are. So we're going to slide, and boom, right on there. So with that slide, it's actually only down 1/1000th of an inch, but I'm going to go ahead and cross that dot there and watch it go up. So, and it looks like consistently 0, 0 thousandths. So I'm trying to understand why I get the 1,000th every now and then. But most of that is hitting 0. So I'm going to claim at this point that the cutter head and this in-feed table are exactly parallel. So if it's not, it's under 1/1000th of an inch off, and so I am comfortable with that. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this cutter head back down. Okay, I'm going to snug this. I'm not going to tighten it too much at the moment. Okay, there's that. Let's go do the other side. Snugged up on this side and that side. Let's go do another test to see if tightening this down has made any significant change. because I want to make sure this stays in square based on how tight this is. I mean, in reality, like that is tightened down and it's not really going anywhere, but I want to make sure that we tighten it evenly on each side. Okay, so this is out by 2/1000ths now. It's going too high, so I need to snug this down some more. Oh. So yeah, tightening it down proved out exactly what I thought was going to happen. And we went down 1/1000th of an inch. Okay, this is getting tight. So at this point, this is 1/1000th higher than that side. If I tighten down that side, then it's going to sink it more. So what I can do is loosen this up, loosen that up, try to shove a piece of metal inside there and raise that down and then tighten it so we get a little better. So let's give that a shot. I have this loosened up like this, and now I need to put something in this side here, or this side, doesn't really matter, so that it'll provide a slight bump so we can tighten it back down. So I'm gonna cut a can. All right, so I have the remnants of the Coke I was drinking earlier. I kind of did that strategically. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of cut out some pieces here. And I don't think I need a lot. What I'm going to do is we'll cut here, and then we'll do, say, this much. And then we'll see what effect that has. We're going to use the natural bend of the can. And since we're only going up 1/1000th of an inch, if I were to do it at the bottom, then like it wouldn't, like it might raise it more. So I'll do it on the side and we'll see how well it works. Actually, yeah, we can do that because right now we're getting a similar result when it's tightened versus, well, all right. So I just kind of shoved it in there as best I can. If you look really closely, I mean, I have to look close at this point, you can see it, but not very well. All right, so with that in mind, let's do some more tests. 4/1000ths off. There we go. I moved it up the side, I had to loosen it a bunch more. So let's do some more testing. I have a piece of tin on this side a little bit down, and I think it's providing enough of a buffer that we're able to get this max when it comes in to a little under halfway between the thousandths and the 0 mark. Yeah, so that should give us a little bit tighter tolerance. So what I did is I put the thing in there and then I tightened down really tight both sides, and that way I could loosen up one side or the other to give it just slight amount of variance up and down. And so now, like this is maxes out at just under the 0 line, and this maxes out at pretty close to the same spot. So for all intents and purposes, this is within 1/1000th of an inch level and parallel to the infeed table. So next, let's move on to the outfeed table. So now we're going to work on making the infeed and outfeed the same and going back and forth. I went ahead and took out all the shims that I had on the outfeed table from when I tried to do this before. So essentially here we have, starting on this side, we're at a 0. Slide this over. We're at 3/1000ths of an inch off. So here's what I'm going to do, so that I keep track of it. So 0.003. So a can is about 0.003. So if I put a shim here and a shim here, actually, you know what? We have a problem. I'm not sure like where to check for sure. So here's what we're gonna do. here. There. While not perfect, that's not going to be perfect. That gives me a spot to hit to. All right, so we're going to start on the mark. We're at a 0. So now we're going to carefully slide ourselves across. We don't want to get up on this back piece just like we did in back there. And we are about 0.02 of an inch off. We shouldn't need to rock it back and forth to get the hump of this. This should be a standard thing. So we'll come back to 0. Yeah, about 2,500. So we know roughly where we need to be. So something to realize is on the can there's going to be some compression. 1 shim is generally about what we need. Is we know 1 shim here and here should raise this up enough to get us there. So I'm going to loosen the back side and shove a shim in. Want that 0, 0, 0. I think that is flat this way. We're good on this one. Let's do a couple more tests. I'm getting a little stuck here, but this is less than 1,000th in offness, so I think that's good. I think we're good going this way. The real question is, how are we from this point to this point? And that's going to be a bit of a pain to figure out. So an interesting consideration that we have to account for is when you go here from corner to corner, right in here is about a 0.03 of a gap. And so we have to be careful if we measure all the way over there to over here, that we don't necessarily want to measure here. We want to measure more towards this part right here where the wood's actually going to be. I don't understand why this isn't level, like why it dips a little bit, but it is what it is and we'll just have to deal with it. Okay, the first thing I'm doing is I've raised this out feed side, and then I'm going to raise the end feed side so that this point touches. Okay, gotta loosen this. And then see we're down. And we're slowly, whoops, gonna go up. And 2, 005, 006, 0075, 0015. Okay, that won't go under, and that doesn't go under. Well, it does slightly right there. Okay. So I can tell that when we come back down here, it's raised up. Now remember, we have that dip, but that's pretty significant. Yeah, that's 0.2 of an inch off. So since we have to account for the dip in here, and the dip about here is 0.03 of an inch, you know, up here it might be, it's probably less, like maybe 0.02 or 2,500, 2,000, whatever, 0.0025. Then we need to add that to, or subtract that from whatever our gauge feeler is. So this was 0.02, so 0.2 of an inch. So we need to close it up by 0.117. Let's say 0.17 of an inch needs to be lifted on this side. So if we say that a can is 0.003 for a shim, so we need to do 0.017 divided by 0.003. So that's 5.6. So I probably need to do 6 shims per side, this side and this side. And so on this side we already have one, so we need 6 on this side and 7 on this side. So I just did all the math to figure out that I need to do 6 and 7 shims. The problem is, yes, this end needs to come up that specific amount, but we're doing the gap here, we're doing the shim here. So we need to figure out, based on one shim, how far up this comes. Then we can figure out how many can slivers that we need to put in there, because one little change here is probably going to be more than 3/1000ths of an inch way out here. So first we're going to start with a 0.028 again and see if that will fit underneath there. And it does not fit. Thank goodness, I was nervous. Yeah, that fits. So 2.4. And that's a debatable amount. So that's 4/1000ths is what that did. I feel like it should have done more. Who knows what else is off? Now that we've made an adjustment here, we should still be good this way because there is still the shim. I put 2 shims down here, left this one in here, and I put 1 in here. So that should raise it like that. So this is 0.002 off. So, and it sloped down too much on that. So, all right, I am gonna get a bit aggressive here. And I think I'm gonna do like 5 shims on, let's do 5 shims. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go ahead and take this one out. We're gonna brainstorm here, take this one out, leave this here and do 5 on each side and see where we get here. Yeah, let's do that. So I got the 5 shims down there. Of course that's gonna happen. So now this side is lower than this side, so I have it angled too much this way. I overshot it. I took out 1 on this side so I can leave it to do this, and I put 1 shim up here, and so it should hopefully level it out this way. Went ahead and re-put everything together, and now I'm still on this one slightly too much that way. However, it's only 3 thou right here and nothing here. So I'm gonna go ahead and see about removing 1 more shim on each side, and that should get us hopefully perfectly level across there.
1 eternity later.
All right, I think this is the best that I'm gonna be able to get it. At 0.1500, 0015, doesn't get under here, doesn't get under here, gets under here with restriction. This is flat all the way across. I'm like, this is the best I think I'm gonna get this tuned. I ended up going with 3 on this side down here, 4 at the bottom on this side, and 1 at the top here on this side. And then my side to side parallel over here is at 0.5 It is good. So with that in mind, I think this is the best I'm gonna tune these tables. And so now I'm ready to start bolting back on pieces. Let me show you something. Dealing with loosening and tightening, this broke off. Like, here's the little handle thingy that goes there. Like, it just doesn't even work. So I was using this. But basically what happens is you have 2 screws here. These are to help secure it in. And so we'll just tighten that up. That goes into a bar that's there to kind of help with the dovetail. But in the meantime, you loosen these nuts up off of here. Screw these out pretty far away. Then you will unscrew this. I'm not going to do it now. And this is what you're going to adjust in and out as you're messing with this. And then, so what I was doing is I was pushing up on this and then tightening this down. And so that basically held it in place. I would check my measurements. If it was off, I would loosen it up, mess with the shims, and tighten it down. The big thing is make sure it's super loose. I think that was one of my problems when I previously did this, is I didn't realize how loose all of this needed to be in order for me to do these adjustments. So Again, these are for your final tightening. This is here to kind of help you set it, measure, set it again, measure, so on and so forth. Yeah, with that, I think we're level. Now we just need to put everything back together. So conceivably, this should work. So what I'm trying to do, so in the past, the last time I tried to do this, I had to like twist this manually. I think if I will put this on through this little thing here, then twist the guard on and round and round and round and round, then it should wind it. Yep, see, twists. Okay, now, did we get it? Did I get it? No. There we go, we got it. So now, yeah, that solved it. This should prevent it. I think this holds it tight so you can't pull it out. And you can't easily just be like, whoop, whoop. Whoop, uh-oh. All right, cool beans. So we're gonna put this back on. So these roll pins weren't sticking out, weren't sticking in all the way like they were supposed to, I think. And it could be because you couldn't get it back on well. I went ahead and did these a little bit just to get some alignment going. And we will see how it goes. It might all be for naught and I have to punch them back out. Ha! Okay, so I want to make sure I get this done well and I have it level across here. So I'm measuring this out. This is at a 1/2 inch from the back. So if it looks straight down, this is at a 1/2 inch. And measuring this one out, this is at a 1/2 inch as well. So this is off where it's tilted too much that way. Okay. This side is perfectly square. Okay. Yeah, see, look how far off that is. Okay, so after doing some testing, I think I solved one of my issues, and that was a technique issue with doing the jointer. Basically, I was getting a taper where this side would be bigger than this side as I ran it through. One of the things I concentrated on whenever running this through, I mean, this board was double the thickness, and there is a little bit of a taper, but after so many passes, I think I figured it out. But basically, as I'm coming across, see how it goes down like that? If I'm putting too much pressure on the back here, it's taking out more over time, and so it's generally creating a taper like that. So I need to push it across as soon as you, I mean, this is proper technique of a joiner. I just thought I was doing it, and I wasn't doing it like I thought. So that kind of solved that. I think it was also kind of out of whack too, and that was causing issues. The next problem to solve is this isn't perfectly square, which is odd because of all the stuff that I've done. It could be because this isn't square on this side and this side is. So I got the blades adjusted. I'm not going to go over how I did it for mine specifically because this is an older Delta jointer and you probably have a different one, but I did want to talk about how I tested adjustment. Basically, I took my ruler and I have the 6-inch mark. You can do it wherever you want. And I put it right on this edge right here. And basically I just rolled the jointer head on so the cutter blade picks it up and moves it. I watched how far that actually moves it, and then I moved over to this side and made sure that when it moved it, as long as I'm not interfering with it, that it moved it the exact same amount. And that way I am fairly certain that it is the same amount on each side. Hopefully, I think I got it less than a 32nd off, maybe even down to a 64th off. And so with that in mind, the blade should be adjusted well, and I'm ready to actually do another test joint and test for square. So with that in mind, let's take several passes. I have this to take off a very thin amount, so I'll have to do more passes. But I'm going to do a test run, and we'll see how it goes. Here we go. So here's an interesting test. I want to check the flatness of the back fence here. So we're setting this dial indicator to 0. This is at the bottom. I release the magnet, bring it up to where it's most of the way to the top, reset the magnet. And it's about 1,000th off. See if I can mess with it a little here. Yep, it's about 1,000th off. So let's go to the other side. And we'll move it up. And it's a 0. So that was definitely interesting. Not exactly sure what it means. Just that, I mean, it doesn't really matter unless I need to use this as a full reference space. The biggest issue is at 90 degrees to the back fence. So there's so many things that are just off on this thing. I am just not sure. Okay, so after everything is done, I think I've decided that I cannot use this jointer to be able to come up with a square corner. I can use it to surface a face, like this one here, or actually I guess this face is the one that I was messing with. And over the course of 3/10 of an inch, I only lose like, I think it was like 2/10 of an inch on a taper. No, it was less than that. Anyway. So I can use it for a face and then plane down the other side, and it becomes perfectly flat in there. However, the corner, whenever I go and I do a square on it, it never squares. I can't get this thing square against this back fence. After much testing, I have determined that this is wonky. This back fence is wonky somehow. Like I don't know. It's weird. When I start measuring from here to here, here to here, here to here, and here to here with a dial indicator, it varies anywhere from 1,000th out of flatness. And then if I take a straight edge all the way across here, from here to here, it actually bows in like this. That might not be that big of a deal if I could get this perfectly square. So when I do a square here, I have this lined up perfect square. However, when I come up over here, it's canted out like that, and there is a gap at the top here. So what happens whenever I push wood through is it goes in and then slightly starts leaning out, and so it starts creating a little bit of an opening, so I can't get it perfectly square. So after going through all of this, I do know that the surfaces are under 1,000th flat, based on experience, based on the math, based on everything. It would behoove me to not do a bunch of passes. I was trying to do a bunch to exaggerate everything, and I got the results that I wanted. However, this back fence here is not something I can use. So instead, what I'm going to use is a method with the table saw. So it's been an adventure dealing with this, and I am glad it is done. I learned a lot in the process. One thing I do know is that if I do end up upgrading this at some point, I know I can't use it for the square. I have to use the table saw for jointing. But the thing I do know is that I will go with a parallelogram style jointer, and I will spend the money to buy a brand new one, so I'm not buying somebody else's problem like I did with this. This has been super frustrating. I have lost many hours of time in dealing with this. However, the benefit is that I know something is wrong and I can act accordingly. And so with that in mind, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time where we're gonna build something.